Hey, Big Blue Banter listener. Would you like an extra $500? That's a lot of cash. Go to bluewirepods.com/survey and complete the Blue Wire audience survey about you and your podcast listening habits for a chance to win a $500 gift card. This survey will help create a better advertising experience for audiences and, in turn, help this show. That's bluewirepods.com/survey, where all you have to do is answer some simple questions for a chance to win $500. Make sure to read the full terms and disclaimer, plus complete the survey for a chance to win. bluewirepods.com/survey. The link is also in the show notes of this episode.
Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Villado, and I will say this: I'm a lot less stressed out today than I was yesterday, Nick, and I was stressed because of work things, and obviously easily triggered when it comes to Mr. G, Mr. Dave. Let loose a little bit on the pod. Felt good to let some out, though, Nick. Look, ultimately,
let something else out to relieve the stress as well.
No.
What?
Jesus Christ, it's a family podcast, Nick.
It wasn't yesterday during that rant. I'll tell you that much.
No, it was not. Look, a lot of people have told me they enjoy it. I am not going to ever force these. It's just naturally going to happen sometimes. I have a quick trigger when it comes to certain things. And look, I am just I felt like a lot of fans who there's like 7 people who DM me about this today, Nick. And I feel like maybe I'm speaking for them. And that's something that I'm happy about because we're tired of it. We're tired of the losing. We're tired of the same story every time. We're tired of hearing, oh, it's okay, this and that and that. We need something to change, and we need something to change fast. And that's hopefully where we're headed this year. I don't want to bury the optimism yet because there is some reason for optimism. I do think this roster has improved versus last year, not just from a health standpoint. The O-line could be better than it ever has. The wide receiver core could be better than it ever has. The playmaking overall can be better than it ever has. But still, some things have to come into place. And to be honest with you, Nick, Joe Schoen must be held accountable for this season. You can't just go into this and say it's another red shirt year. And I think that's what frustrates some fans. And I'm starting to group myself in that group, Nick, because I don't want another red shirt year. And what bothers me most is that we're not really heading into this thing thinking that it's a Super Bowl potential season. And that's okay. Not every team gets to be a Super Bowl contender every year. But at some point, you have to be on that trajectory. At some point, there needs to be signs. And there are reasons that could happen. And that's what we're going to get into today. Today is our bold prediction show. We're going to have 5 bold predictions. And if these bold predictions come true, we will be on that trajectory. And that's all we ask. Just get us headed in the direction of we're not grinding toward wild cards. We're looking for Super Bowl contention.
Do you have anything on the cantankerous press conference with Joe Schoen, or maybe his nickname should be Cranky Joe?
Well, yeah. So I tweeted a little bit about this. It was definitely the most perturbed. Is that the word? Perturbed I've seen Joe Schoen in his tenure as Giants general manager. I think it's getting to him. And I think what's getting to him is just there's been a lot of negativity about the Giants heading into this season. And look, they have a chance to turn that around, but I won't sit here and say it's not rightfully so, Nick, because I can't remember a season where collectively we've headed into it with less hope. And that's not to say I don't have that hope or you don't have that hope. That's to say what the media and what the 31 other teams and analysts who are following this team are saying about the Giants and feeling about the Giants. Okay. So it's not like we could sit here as fans and say they're wrong. We don't know if they're wrong. We said those same fans said they were wrong about Gettleman and about Jones, and things haven't changed on that front for 6 years or 5 years under Daniel Jones. And this is not his fault, but I will repeat this. The Giants have the 4th worst record in the NFL. It's not his fault, but it also doesn't mean he's not part of the problem. This is something fans can't really grasp, that if it's not all their fault, they're not part of the problem and they're completely excused. And he has a chance to turn that around this year. They're giving him another chance, man. He's the QB1. There's no competition whatsoever for Daniel Jones this year. It's just fully his job to win or lose over the course of, the future. But look, fans are perturbed, and that's why there's been negativity. And Joe Schoen, in my mind, has to be able to navigate that negativity, Nick. I don't think he can just sit here and be like, everything's fine. I love the direction and this and that. And that's what kind of bothered me yesterday. And it's okay. I don't care really what he says, Nick, because ultimately he's just giving the media the BS that they want to hear. And he's never going to tell the truth to the media. But ultimately, there can't just be little it's just what it all comes down to for me, Nick, is the bar, right? The bar has to be set so much higher than it's been. It can't just be, wow, we did it again. We got a wild card. We did something. No, 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 no. It has to be, wow, we got a wild card. We won a game. And in that second divisional game, we didn't get our asses kicked by the Eagles and show no sign of being anywhere near competing for what matters, the Super Bowl. Because if we do that again and we say, that's it, let's run it back, let's do the whole same core, I'm not going to feel hope. And I'm not going to apologize again because I did it that year. And I bought into it after that year. But I need more this year to really buy into this vision of a long-term thing with this quarterback. And he has to put a lot more on the table than the 2022 season. It's not just him, the whole team, the O-line and all of that. But that's where I'm at. And I think that's where a lot of fans are at. And I think Joe Schoen is somewhat annoyed by that. And that's okay because he's building a team and he doesn't look at it like we need to make this big leap toward contention. But unfortunately, what's working against him, Nick, is that fans have dealt with this for 10 years. So we're not ready to just take these baby steps anymore, these incremental steps. A lot of us have set the bar to our level. And if Joe Schoen's bar is down here, we're just not willing to accept that anymore.
Now, I don't even think Joe Schoen's bar is down there. It's just the fact of the matter is the Giants did not perform last year. So what is he going to say at that point? Right. When you look at him, you're like, yo, remember that 7th overall pick you selected? What's going on with that? What about those 2 day 2 picks, Josh Azudu and Cordell Flott? Like, what's going on exactly with that? Like, he's starting to feel the heat and the pressure, and you're in New York. You're in the hottest market in the entire country. Of course, you're going to start feeling that heat. So I wasn't too surprised by his attitude. I thought it was a little bit tense, but hey, man, he's starting to feel it, and he should at this point. It's year 3, and the Giants are predicted, like you said, by a lot of experts in the media that they're going to suck this year. I hope they can be a little bit better, and I think that's a perfect segue, Dan, into our bold predictions.
I want to talk a little bit more about the Schoen thing, though.
Never mind about the segue.
It's a good segue, but I just want to say this. I think it's fair for him to be a little annoyed. Look, the questions are the same in some regards. I hear a lot of repeats, and a lot of this is just stuff that is not really important to ask in my mind to some extent. Or I shouldn't say not important to ask, or maybe is asked in a way that could bother a general manager, right, Nick? Because his job is not to give the media answers to these questions. His job is to put together a team that can win consistently. But it is fair when you wonder, like when he says, here's what problem, when he says something in that Go Long article with Tyler Dunn, like, you know, our year, this is the real year. We got to judge our draft class, our first class. It's year 3. And then we look at it like, well, we might not see Evan Neal on the field. We might not see Azudu on the field for the entire year, potentially both of those two. And we might not see Flott making an impact in year 3. That's when things get a little messy and jumbled. And I guess we're going over it again. But I understand his point of view, Nick. I do. But I think he's got to find a way to be less perturbed by the media because fans don't like this shit either. Like they need him to show some kind of different level there.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And just to your point about Evan Neal and Josh Azudu,
yeah,
it's a bad case scenario at this point if they see the field. That means the starters were either injured or they sucked and the Giants are desperate. That's not good, man. That's not a good situation.
Very well said. And I think, you know, they seemed annoyed. We'll do one more and then we'll get to the show. But they seemed annoyed when they were asked about Evan Neal potentially moving to guard and almost shut it down entirely.
Dable shut it down entirely.
Yeah, Dable shut it down entirely. Said, we got enough guards. He's our he's going to be a tackle. He's going to be a right tackle, they said. Which is also interesting, by the way. If there were an injury, I don't know who would play left tackle, him or Josh Azudu, which is frightening to think that they would put Josh Azudu back out there at left tackle after what they saw last year.
Pick Illuminor out to the left side and put Evan Neal in at right tackle. That's
actually a good point. That's exactly what to do. Unless, no, that's it. That's right. But what do you think about that? Because we spent time, and I want to get into our show, but this is just something you brought up on the last episode, Nick. You did your Evan Neal analysis. You put a video out that everybody should watch on Big Blue Banter, and you made the case, and to some degree, you didn't go hard on it, but you said at this point you'd like to see him transition and guard to some extent.
Yeah.
What do you make of the idea that they're not even considering this whatsoever?
They're trying to salvage a piece at right tackle, and I think they went back to the film, as they said in the press conference, and they look at Evan Neal, and they say, look, we do have guards. We don't have a plan at tackle. Like, Josh Azudu cannot be the plan at tackle if something happens to Illuminor and Andrew Thomas, so it has to be Evan Neal, and we have to make that work, and we have to refine his angle sets and make him play up to like a 95th percentile in terms of his fundamentals to mask the athletic deficiencies I believe he has at tackle.
Yeah, it's interesting. I trust your analysis, Nick. I obviously trust what they see too. But I kind of feel like based on what you said, and you broke it down really well, it's hard for me to see him as a tackle at the NFL level because it's hard for me to see what's plaguing him now in pass protection really ever fixing itself.
Not to hedge, but I'll say one thing. If he can get 6 weeks of just health and really focus in on those
maybe
fundamentals,
we'll see it. Yep.
maybe you can start to see less mistakes, more confidence, understanding where exactly to be to anchor down against those wide rushers while also protecting the outside and anticipating when edge rushers are going to go to the outside or try to bull rush. Because all of that right now, to me, it's not a certain thing when he is in his pass set. I think he is guessing up until that last second. And if he can be more confident in where he has to be, maybe that can rectify some of those issues.
Yeah, I hope you're right. A couple final notes on this. I will say this to a commenter, great comment yesterday on our video said, if you really think about it, a case can be made that Gettleman was a better drafter than Joe Schoen. And to this point, that is a true case to be made. Gettleman found Andrew Thomas and Dexter Lawrence in his drafts. He had a lot of swings. He had a lot more swings than Joe Schoen in the top 10. But regardless, Dexter Lawrence was not a top 10 pick. He found him outside the top 15 overall. Now, of course, that doesn't mean we sit here and say, wait a second, if that's the case, does that mean Gettleman was better than Schoen or Schoen is as bad as Gettleman? No, because drafting is only one part of being a GM. From a trade standpoint, Schoen has walked circles on Gettleman. Gettleman did an Ogletree trade, pathetic and disgusting. He did the Leonard Williams trade, process-wise, pathetic and disgusting. His free agency was pathetic and disgusting across the board. Solder, Omame, year after year, extending Ogletree, mismanaging the cap to crazy degree, bidding against himself with Kenny Golladay. No one willing to give him more than a 1-year deal after that hip surgery. Gettleman gives him 72 on over 3. So from the process standpoint and from just the action standpoint, not just how horrible Gettleman's process was, but his actual actions, the play out actions, the free agent signings and the mismanagement of the cap and the trading and the trade and how he was as a trader. Those things Schoen has ran circles on. But as an actual drafter and talent evaluator, right now, you can honestly make the case that Gettleman was a better talent evaluator than Joe Schoen in the draft, which is crazy to even consider, but honestly, probably true.
Two of Shane's draft classes probably shouldn't judge them at this point.
Fair.
Kayvon Thibodeau, hopefully he can develop, and then you have that rest of the 2020. And we also brought up, like Micah McFadden, Dane Belton, Daniel Bellinger. They're all solid day 3 hits. So there are hits, but I think there is a case to be made, and maybe we can do an entire podcast on that one day.
Yeah, without a doubt. And that's a fun podcast that people have actually said they wanted to hear. But we can do that another time. Let's say this on one final note on that front when it comes to the Joe Schoen thing. I feel for him when he gets aggravated about the cornerback 2 question, Nick, because he did use a draft pick at corner and he doesn't have that much to work with from a free agency standpoint because they've allocated $40 million of their cap space, 18% to a quarterback. When you do that, you don't have flexibility to just go nuts in free agency, filling every need. And waiver wire doesn't have any real cornerbacks. So it's like people get mad at him, but it's like, what else could have you done? And I feel for him on that front and the quarterback front because I don't honestly feel like there were that many solutions at quarterback this offseason either.
And we know that he wanted to add a cornerback. We learned that through Hard Knocks.
And quarterback. Both.
No, I know.
That both through Hard Knocks.
But with cornerback specifically, they were all in on Lassiter, who looks like he's going to be a stud next to Derek Stingley Jr. out there with Houston. And they were all in on the kid from Alabama as well. Both of them went before the New York Giants selected. And they also traded that 39th pick to get Brian Burns, which we're not complaining about at all. But they wanted to add a cornerback early in the draft, and they just did not have that opportunity. It's kind of like in fantasy football when you want a certain position group and the last guy in the tier goes a pick or 2 before you get to select, and then you're sitting there like, man, I should have drafted him probably before. I should have did something to get him. It's similar to that, only not fantasy football and real life and your life and possibly your career.
That's well said. And you can't just force the worst thing you can do when you're in those spots in fantasy is force the picks and force the position and draft for need. And again, remember, Dave Gettleman with the Kadarius Toney pick, which is arguably becoming one of his worst picks ever. I mean, DeAndre Baker, him, it's a tough call because he traded 3 picks for Baker. But the Toney one was, remember, he said, I'm getting a playmaker no matter what for Jones. When you put your mind on that, I'm getting one position no matter what, that's the easiest way to fail as a general manager. It's exactly what he did, but that doesn't even go into the fact that he didn't vet Kadarius Toney, who had off-field issues and injury concerns at Florida, and just didn't even, all he did was meet with him once at the combine and said he had a bubbly personality. I mean, it's just beyond disgusting. Honestly, dude, I'm sorry to get back into this one last time, but it's disgusting and it's appalling. It's appalling to me, the lack of the resources he put into scouting Kadarius Toney. It's appalling that somebody could have that job title and have that kind of valuable asset for the franchise. A 2021 pick that could be helping right now. Micah Parsons helps the Cowboys right now. Rashawn Slater helps his team right now. Tons of picks help their teams from that draft class. Our pick is worth nothing. our pick from that class worth nothing. But let's get into bold predictions. Enough of that, Nick. I want to have some fun here. We did 5 bold predictions each. I'm going to let you start with your number 1 bold prediction.
I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to enter a parallel universe or go through some elaborate labyrinth just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. Turns out, it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. It's easy to switch to. The website has a good interface. I have a couple buddies who have recommended this to me. They speak highly of Mint Mobile. Get started, go to mintmobile.com/BBB. That is 3 Bs. There you'll see that right now, all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. Plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/BBB. That's mintmobile.com/BBB. 3 Bs, triple B. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/BBB. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. You ever feel sluggish or out of focus? Are you stressed? Has your digestive system caused discomfort or flatulence like a certain co-host on this podcast during a live stream? If so, you should check out AG1. When I started drinking AG1 daily, I could feel a real difference in my daily health. I had more energy, I was better off at the gym, and I could focus on my work in a much more efficient manner. That's because AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that supports your body's universal needs like gut optimization, stress management, and immune support. Since 2010, AG1 has led the future of foundational nutrition, continuously refining their formula to create a smarter, better way to elevate your baseline health. Not only did I replace my multivitamin with AG1, but I love that every scoop also includes prebiotics, probiotics, and digestive enzymes for gut support. I recommend AG1 to all my family and friends because AG1 has a team of doctors and scientists that formulate around the latest science and maintains high quality standards within the industry. Even my friends have started drinking AG1, and they always tell me how energetic they feel and how it's helped them out at the gym, and also it's helped them manage their stress levels. That's why we're happy to have AG1 as our partner. If you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs when you first subscribe. Go to drinkag1.com/banter. That's drinkag1.com/banter to check it out. Our mental and physical well-being is of the utmost importance. Whether you're a world-class athlete or a podcaster like me, we all need to take that very seriously. That's why I'm excited that Unified Healing is sponsoring this episode of the Big Blue Banter podcast. Unified Healing is a new and super innovative global network of wellness centers powered by Energy Enhancement System, or EE System. If you haven't heard of the EE System yet, you'll want to listen up. This technology promotes wellness, deep relaxation, purification, and rejuvenation. Whether you're here in New York, New Jersey, Arizona, if you will, or hundreds of other locations across the globe, access to a center is easy and affordable. Interested in experiencing the EE System technology for yourself? Go to unifiedhealing.com/banter to learn more and find a center near you. That's UNIFYD healing.com/banter. No material or testimonials on the Unified Healing website are intended to be viewed as medical advice or a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare providers with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, include EE system. All right, we're going to go with this, Dan. Now, I just peeked at your bold predictions. Dan and I, we did not talk about any of this before, but we both have bold predictions about Daniel Jones. Remember, these are bold predictions. Doesn't necessarily mean Dan and I believe this can happen, but we believe there is a realistic probability that this could happen. It's a plausible scenario, right? Daniel Jones will set career highs in passing yards, passing touchdowns, and yards per attempt. He'll throw for, I have, 3,900 yards. That's an average of 229.4 yards per game with over 25 passing touchdowns and a yards per attempt of 7. And I think this is going to happen mainly because they have Malik Nabers. They focused all offseason on creating explosive plays and becoming more vertical and working on that aspect of this offense that just really hasn't been here since Brian Daboll arrived. And we know Brian Daboll wants the offense to operate in that manner. And obviously the Giants upgraded this offensive line. You have Jermaine Illuminor. You're bringing Greg Van Roten, who are relying on 34-year-old. But honestly, I feel a lot better than a lot of the other players that we had last year. You have John Runyon as well, Andrew Thomas healthy. So you have a much more stable infrastructure around Daniel Jones with Malik Nabers, Jalen Hyatt in his second year, Wan'Dale Robinson a year removed from that torn ACL. He had basically all of last year to recover, and now he should be full speed. So I think Daniel Jones is going to be clicking, and he'll come just shy of 4,000 yards in a season. And I also think, and this is kind of grouped in with this, he will only be sacked 34 times this year. Because of that offensive line. He'll be getting rid of the football a lot quicker than he has in the past. Now, in 2022, he was sacked 52 times. Last year, played how many games? Not that many. Sacked 30 times. So I only have him sacked 34 times. This is much more bold than the first one that I just came up with. But I do believe the upgrades on the offensive line are going to significantly help Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones will be a bit quicker getting rid of the football, which doesn't necessarily work for the yards per attempt that I'm predicting. But I think when that single high is there and those one-on-one matchups are there for Malik Nabers, he's firing the football, and Malik Nabers is going to come down with more than 50% of those.
I like those bold predictions. It's interesting. We're going to have a lot of similar bold predictions, I'm guessing, just because we think a lot alike on the Giants, but we'll see. Hopefully we have some different ones in here. I apologize if we have some similar type repeats. I'll say the boldest part of your prediction to me was the sacks one, because that is not just for, everyone who actually knows football knows it's not just sacks is not just an offensive line stat. Sacks is a quarterback and offensive line stat. And Daniel Jones is one of the worst pressure to sack ratios in the NFL over the last 5 years. He was bad at Duke and he was bad in the NFL at that. He is not good at avoiding sacks. He gets a lot of pressure too. The offensive line has been bad, but he hasn't done well with that. And you could just see the difference in the numbers between him and other quarterbacks who have played for the Giants and Duke and all those types of things and compare him in that regard. It's not something he's been good at during his NFL career. Now, can he take a step forward? That's interesting. I'm less bullish on that, but I'm more bullish on the first part, Nick. And my prediction is he actually becomes a 4,000-yard passer for the first time in his career. You may say, oh, that's not that bold. It's just 4,000 yards. You're just averaging. Well, here's what you need to do, Nick. All you need to do is average 236 passing yards a game to get to 4,000 for the year now in the 17-game schedule. But what I'll tell you is you may not call that bold, and I'll say this. His career high before this is 3,205 yards passing. That's 800. He would have to have 800 yards more passing than he's ever had in his entire NFL career. This guy has not been a passer. So it is pretty bold from that standpoint. I'm not willing to do the passing touchdowns or the yards per attempt one. I just don't feel as comfortable with those, Nick. But I do feel comfortable with the volume.
It's coward, bro. It's coward stuff.
No, I just
bold predictions, Dan.
Yeah. I don't believe it's going to happen. I wish I did. But, the main reason I believe that he's going to eclipse 4,000 for the first time in his career is that I think that Brian Daboll is, and I think he's bought into this because I read his article with Tyler Dunn where Daniel Jones never gives offseason articles. And he was like, look, I'm going to air it out. I'm going to sling it and I'm going to take my shots. And I think Brian Daboll is giving him a brand new way to look at the offense this year and a brand new way to process what they're doing from an offensive standpoint. And maybe Malik Nabers was what he needed to get that new. Maybe Malik Nabers is what Brian Daboll needed to get to that point and what Daniel Jones needed to get that point of processing the offense differently. But I really think what you said is going to happen. He's going to be looking at this thing pre-snap. He's going to be looking for his one-on-ones, and he's going to be taking these 3-step drops and firing, just like we saw in the Texans game. That was the most exciting version I've seen of Daniel Jones since the Bengals preseason game and since the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the first game of his NFL career. That was the version of Daniel Jones I saw in the Houston Texans game, and that's the version I think we're going to get this season, at least for as long as it works. Now, of course, I may be a little bullish on this. Defense, the Texans were not scheming to stop Daniel Jones. They may do something like they do during the regular season, which is put guys up on the line of scrimmage, blitz the hell out of him like they have in the past, and he just doesn't have time to get to that spot, or he's not quick enough to get to that spot. That I'm still worried about. Obviously, when you make any kind of Daniel Jones prediction as far as 4,000 yards goes, or any of the ones you may, Nick, it's risky in the sense that, one, he has a massive injury history, and two, he will be benched if the Giants are out of a playoff contention. Exactly. I am almost positive of that. The Giants will not be stupid enough to play him in weeks 12, 13, 14 if they're out of playoff contention, and all that could lead to is a $25 million injury guarantee for next offseason, literally killing their next season. They won't be that stupid. So it's risky from that standpoint, obviously, but I do believe he can stay healthy this year, and I believe he can keep the Giants competitive at a 9-10 win rate potentially, obviously. And I think he's going to look at these matchups, dude, pre-snap, and just be like, F it. I'll take my 3-step drop, and I'll just put it out there on the outside and hope these receivers can make a play.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see a lot of safeties rolling over the top of Malik Nabers, and that's going to force Daniel Jones to get to that second read. And that's something that's going to be diagnosed right when he catches the football on a snap and on his drop back, when he's watching those safeties to see if they're flowing over the top of Malik Nabers. And even though that's probably going to happen often, my second bold prediction is Malik Nabers will set the rookie target and reception record and defeat Anquan Bolden's 165 targets. So 165 targets at a 17-game pace is 9.7 targets a game, which sounds really like a lot, man. Awesome. And I'm going to roll with it here, baby. Let's go with it. We're going to be bold. I also think, again, 109 total receptions is where I'm going to have Malik Nabers at, which is 4 more than what Puka Nacua just set last season. And Jalen Waddle, I think I had 102 or 103 2 years previous to that. 109 total receptions, 17 games, it's 6.4 receptions per game. Puka Nacua last season, when it came to targets, had 160. So I'm predicting Malik Nabers is going to have more than that. Garrett Wilson, I think in 2022 had 147. So this is bold because, like I said a little bit earlier, defenses will focus on Nabers. Like, it's easy to say, yeah, the Giants are going to throw to their uber talented guy, of course. But we've spoken in the past how Brian Daboll, he has contingency plans. If you want to remove one player, if you wanted to remove Darren Waller, there's going to be other options. You want to remove Saquon Barkley, we're going to go with other options. Those secondary options that the Giants have are actually talented enough to where the Giants aren't going to be like, all right, well, we're not going to force it to Malik Nabers. But even still, I think Brian Daboll is creative enough to where Nabers is going to eat. The offense is going to run through Nabers. They're going to keep him off the line of scrimmage, have him avoid press. They're going to use him a lot in motion to give him easy looks around the line of scrimmage and vertically. Malik Nabers is going to feast. I think he's going to have a huge season, and I think he's going to beat the rookie target and the rookie receptions record.
I love it, Nick. And credit Jacob Gibbs for these stats. But if you just look at the Houston game, Malik Nabers had a 35% target share and a 42% air yardage target share in that game, or air yardage share, I should say, in that game, which is bonkers numbers. I mean, you talked about Garrett Wilson's 2022. We're looking at 29%, which was high target share. If he gets over 30%, Nabers into the 33, 34% target share range, we're looking at 150, 160, maybe 170 targets, in which case he can definitely break that rookie reception record if he gets that level. I was looking at my bold prediction on Malik Nabers is that this is my third one, but that he will break the all-time Giants rookie reception record, which was set by Odell Beckham Jr. in 2014 with 91. Now, Beckham, this is even crazier, Nick, got 130 targets as a rookie in just 12 games. That's absolutely bonkers. But I think Nabers could have that exact same pace, if not more, based on what we saw in that Houston game, based on what we saw in the training camp practices, based on what we saw in the joint practices. This offense is designed around Malik Nabers. Brian Daboll will force defenses to dictate to them. Will force defenses to say, look, you're either going to put multiple guys over him every play and bracket him like we did Justin Jefferson in that Minnesota Vikings playoff game, and I'm saying Wink Martindale, or we're going to get him the football. And even when you do, we're going to put him in motion. We're going to get him easy targets as well. So you have an option. You're either going to give him shots at big plays every snap by putting one guy over the top, try to press him, try to do whatever you can. It's not going to work. Or bracket him and we'll get him underneath. And either way, he's getting the football.
The Giants, we have this guy now. We have one of those receivers that we look around the league like, oh, could you imagine having a Justin Jefferson, a Jamar Chase? Malik Nabers is in that conversation. We're going to learn that quick this season.
Yeah, it seems bullish when you say it like that because he hasn't played an NFL snap. But we're going to, like you said, we're going to learn that quick. And you could call us out on it now and say we're too bullish on Nabers, but just watch. In 4 or 5 weeks, you'll be like, oh, wait, never mind. You were right about this dude. We hope, at least. I mean, obviously, Daniel Jones has to.
If we're wrong, you're just going to be like, where did Big Blue Banter go? Like, they're just not doing episodes anymore. Like,
Malik Nabers was great. Yeah. Like, this guy sucks. No, I'm kidding. It's so hard for me to see him fail, even with the quarterback play. It just, if it's not good, if it's still not good, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just, he should be quarterback proof. Malik Nabers should be a quarterback proof prospect.
Yeah.
I hope I'm right about that. But there's so few players I've seen at his level that can do what he can do already, that he showed already in training camp, joint practices, and the preseason, and obviously in college tape, that I can't remember any quarterbacks that, I can't remember any not quarterback proof receivers with his level, like, I'm trying to think of who's busted at wide receiver over the last 10, 15 years.
There's not a bust. It's just like oh man, this guy needs a better quarterback, but you could see the talent. Like, we had DeAndre Hopkins, who's a completely different type of receiver than Malik Nabers. Just make it work with so many Texans quarterbacks, the Brian Hoyers of the world, and all of those guys, Brock Osweiler at points.
Yep.
Daniel Jones is better than those quarterbacks, right? Daniel Jones has more to offer than those guys. And I think it's going to click with Malik Nabers and Daniel Jones. I don't know if that's going to result in the wins. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but the young man will feast.
I'm excited too, Nick. Honestly, I really believe this guy could change, at the very least, make it fun to watch the Giants again, almost single-handedly. Even if he's not getting the ball, just the attention he takes away. And that leads to the next guy who I think could make it really exciting to watch the Giants again. And that's my third bold prediction, or my second. We jumped to 3 with Nabers. It's Tyrone Tracy. I think that Tyrone Tracy will emerge after midpoint and by the end of the season as the clear-cut, accepted RB1 on this team. And that's not that easy to do with the contract they gave Singletary and with the role they're going to give Singletary to start the year. But I think he's going to do it and be accepted by all Giants fans as an RB1 for us heading into 2025, because he's going to lead the Giants running backs in yards per carry, receptions, yards after contact per attempt, and forced missed tackle rate, which is going to be tough because Singletary's always been good in forced missed tackle rate. I think this guy could be even more explosive and even better. I was going back and I was watching some of Tyrone Tracy today from his Purdue. Oh my God, this guy in space is so phenomenal. He's aggressive. He's physical. He shakes off tackles, dude, and he understands space. He has good spatial awareness. I really think that Tyrone Tracy could hit the ground running, as long as he's healthy, of course, and it looks like he had a low ankle sprain. He's going to be fine. But I just don't know the last time I felt this confident about a running back. We drafted a 5th-round running back last year in Eric Gray. Obviously, Barkley was ahead of him, but Gray's tape at Oklahoma was fun and it was interesting, but it wasn't what Tyrone Tracy has. And it doesn't translate the same way. Tyrone Tracy is a man among boys, and he'll be that way at the NFL level. Maybe not to the extent he was at college, but he's a different size, a different athlete the Giants have had at running back since Saquon Barkley. Literally, this is the best athlete they've put on the field at running back since Barkley. And athleticism matters at one position. If it's going to matter at one position the most, it's running back.
Since week 18 of last year, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Nah, but Tyrone Tracy, I agree. Tyrone Tracy had 46 missed tackles forced last year, and didn't he lead the NCAA in missed tackle force rate?
Yes.
And you watch it, even in the
top
preseason.
4 in yards after contact too.
Yeah, he had 4.44 yards after contact, and you can see it pop on tape. And we didn't even mention yet that the guy's been a running back for a year. He's new to this position group. I'm very high on him as well. But my next bold prediction is actually another running back one, and it's about Devin Singletary. Devin Singletary will have more missed tackles forced than Saquon Barkley in 2024.
Oh, nice. I love this. You're going real bold.
I'm going bold. Now, people will be like, it's not that bold. Last year, Devin Singletary, when he wasn't even the full-time starter for the entire season with the Houston Texans, he essentially was. But he wasn't, right? He had 2 more missed tackles forced than Saquon Barkley last season, which is crazy. But Saquon Barkley is now going to be running behind the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line with an 11 personnel package of freaking Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, and Jahan Dotson. So he's going to have these light boxes, especially with Jalen Hurts and his rushing ability, which is going to put him in space to create more missed tackles forced instead of just having to dance around at the line of scrimmage because there's 8 men in the box or whatever. So I think Saquon Barkley is going to improve his missed tackle forced rate this season, but I still think Devin Singletary is going to have more. That's my bold prediction. Maybe I shouldn't say I think. And then I also think Tyrone Tracy Jr. could put the Knicks on this bold prediction because, as you just stated, and I agree, I think he's going to have a massive role as this season progresses. But I'm still going to say this about Devin Singletary because I know how slippery he can be in very tight, confined spaces.
Yeah, Singletary's looked good to me this preseason, this training camp. I think what he brings is exactly what the Giants said on Hard Knocks, a proficient inside runner. And the way they're setting this offense up, we've seen it with the draw plays, this preseason. They're going to need someone to be an inside runner because I think this offense is going to work outside in this year. I really do. I think we're going to see a career high for Daniel Jones in pass attempts. I don't think Brian Dable is going to run that same 2022 offense, which is ball control. Because quite frankly, I'm not sure the defense is going to allow him to run ball control like they were in 2022 and with the schedule as well.
You also have a star receiver too now. Like, you didn't have that back then. So the offense is going to run through him.
Exactly. And that changes so much of what we'll see from a run game standpoint and from a pass game standpoint. My next bold prediction, Nick, I think I'm at number 4 here, is that the Giants will finish with a top 5 defense in red zone efficiency. And it's bold because if you've followed the Giants at all this preseason, everyone thinks that defense is going to be an absolute disaster. Oh, the corners, they're unbelievably bad. Did you see him in the joint practices versus the Jets? But guess what? Inside the red zone, the space is confined. It's tight. It works to a cornerback's favor for the first and only time at any point they'll deal with. And I'm not so sure they're going to be great in between the 20s, these corners. I'm not so sure they're going to be great at avoiding 40 to 50-yard gains and things like that. But once you get in the red zone, Shane Bowen's system has a history of being one of the toughest to score touchdowns on. And that's something Wink Martindale, by the way, did a good job of when they were actually good, the Giants in 2022. And I think when you're in the red zone, that's when that front really plays its role. Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau. That's when those guys come to play. Bobby Okereke at the second level in pass coverage, he can really shine in that regard as well. Even guys like Tyler Nubin and Dane Belton with more, playing, in the role in that tight confined space I think could be making big plays in the red zone. So I think the Giants, their path to winning is going to be simple. The offense obviously has to take a step forward, but on defense, they're going to bend, but don't break in the red zone. Turn those drives into field goals, and you'll win football games. And I believe they'll finish season top 5. And despite, and they're not going to be a top 5 defense. I think we know that probably, but top 5 red zone efficiency, I think is attainable.
I think that's an excellent take, and it's bold, but it's also very realistic because Shane Bowen was top 5, I think, 2 or 3 years when he was with Tennessee. He loves to drop 8 in the red zone. When it's like 3rd and goal from like the 6 or 7, when it's a passing situation, you're going to see Dexter Lawrence sometimes drop into coverage. We saw Jeffrey Simmons do it. So why not Dexter Lawrence? And you're going to see Bobby Okereke, if it's against a mobile quarterback, act as some sort of quarterback spy with Dexter Lawrence's big ass just jumping around. And you got to throw the football in the middle of the field around that, like best of luck quarterback. So you're going to see some creative stuff tight in the red zone. And there's a reason why they were so good in the red zone, especially when they were passing. You're going to see double buzz spies, forcing everything outside the numbers, where the cornerbacks are going to have to just push the sideline, use the sideline to their advantage. So I'm looking forward to the red zone defense as well. Speaking of,
and by the way, we got one quick thing on that. We got one good, I thought, example of that in the preseason when the Texans got down in the red zone. The Giants really tightened up, and they gave them an extra opportunity with that bogus ass penalty that I feel like the DB and receiver and tight end on the play just kind of like tripped over each other. I was like such a fake ass defensive pass interference or holding or whatever they called, but they had to go back in and they did it again. I think part of it is like we're going to see batted pass from Dexter Lawrence. We're going to see those spin moves, those quick moves from Brian Burns, and I just feel like we got a good example of it against one of the best offenses in the preseason. Hopefully that carries over.
And we have safeties who have eyes, man. Safeties who have
exactly.
eyes.
That's such a good combo right there.
Dane Belton's going to be in that package as well as Tyler Nubin. Nubin will record 6 interceptions. That is my 4th bold prediction. This is spicy. Yes. I don't remember the last time we had a rookie record this. How many years in was Andre Brown?
Has anyone recorded 6 interceptions recently besides like Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie?
Yeah. DRC did it in 2016. We had
that was years ago.
Yeah, Andre Brown did it, or Stevie Brown, I'm sorry, did it.
Stevie Brown. Oh my God, we're talking Stevie Brown.
Yeah,
we're talking 2016, and Stevie Brown was so long ago. I do
2012. It wasn't so long ago. 8. So
dude, that's freaking 12 seasons ago.
He had 8 though, which is insane.
I know.
And then my guy Emmanuel McDaniel had 6 in 2000. I think Antrell Roll had 6 in 2013.
Yeah, I was talking 5 years, 10 years at most. But yeah,
but this is bold though, because in 2022, when the Giants won a freaking playoff game, they had 6 total interceptions. They had 6. They tied for last with the Vegas Raiders that year. Wow. 6 total interceptions, and then they go and they draft Deontay Banks, and then they were able to actually come away with a decent amount of takeaways last season. Bobby Okereke was a catalyst to a lot of that in the middle of the field. But Tyler Nubin, I think his eyes will work to his advantage, and I think he does a very good job baiting quarterbacks. Now, the only issue with this is you got to be in positive game scripts. You got to have the
Right.
lead, and you got to allow Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, and Kayvon Thibodeau to do their thing. And I think in the games where those guys can pin their ears back in the third and fourth quarter, Tyler Nubin will come away with some takeaways when they are in quarters palms. And I think he's just an excellent cerebral safety who fits this system perfectly, and he'll come away with some interceptions. 6 is a lot. That's why we're bold, baby.
My reaction to your bold prediction on Tyler Nubin is just a one-liner that I do strongly believe in. I believe Tyler Nubin will be the player that changes the mind of most Giants fans. There were so many fans who were out on this draft pick. They felt like it was a need-based jam pick, and I understand your worry considering all the needs-based picks we've made in the past. Some that have not worked out, some that have worked out. But in this regard, I think they'll be. I'm not going to say you're going to be wrong because everybody can be wrong. I'm just going to say you're going to change your mind. You're going to be like, wow, I'm really happy we made this pick. This dude is going to be a future player for us and a building block. And I think it's going to be apparent right away with this guy. That's how high I am on him. He's physical. He's got great eyes. And like Joe Shane said, we've done the studies. The DBs and the safeties in the college level who rack up those turnovers end up translating more than others. And I've seen it with Antoine Winfield. I've seen it with a lot of the better safeties in the NFL. So I think he's onto something there.
And he's in a defense that's very similar to the one that he played in Minnesota.
Yes.
Right. Like a lot of times you have teams will draft a player who comes away with all these interceptions and he's like, yo, this was my role in college. Now you're doing this. You're going to be down in the slot. And it's like, well, that's not where I thrived. And now you're at a place and everyone's like, oh, he sucks. He's a bust. It's like, bro, I'm good. Just put me in the right. And then they go to another team and then he ends up being, oh, well, that guy was pretty good.
Exactly.
Systems,
all right.
man.
My final bold prediction, Nick, and this one, the nomenclature will have to be unique for this one because I'm not a PFF rankings guy. I think it's kind of BS across the board from a ranking standpoint. So we can use that, but we could also just use let's hear how Robert Mays and some of the better football analysts talk about this group at the end of the year. But my bold prediction is the Giants will finish as a top 16, one of the better half offensive lines in the NFL. Maybe you go by PFF ratings or by how people perceive us or whatever. I don't want to go by sack stat because, again, I think that's more of a quarterback stat than people realize. But I want to go by just the overall feel thing. But it's a lot. It's a little stretch. But I think we know, man. We haven't had a top 16 offensive line. 08? Was that the last time the Giants had a top 16 offensive line in the NFL? Maybe. I don't know. It wasn't 11. They were bad that year. It literally might have been 2008, which at this point is 16 seasons ago, where the Giants were just in the top half of the NFL when it comes to their offensive line overall. Amazing. Just an absolutely stunning thing to think about. But my bold prediction is it's happening this year. I feel really good about the vibes of the offensive line through the preseason, through training camp. Now, I hope I don't end up regretting that, but we've seen it in the joint practices. We've seen it in all the preseason games, with the exception of the last one when they weren't playing anybody. That doesn't matter to me. I feel good, man. I think here's the thing. It shouldn't be that hard to do, Nick. We have one of the best left tackles in the whole NFL. Okay.
Exactly.
Illuminor just has to be what he's been so far every step of the way with the Raiders and with us in the preseason. Now that feels good. Now it's interior. Interior has been a problem for the Giants too. But from an interior standpoint, I feel good about Runyon. I don't know how I can. And then then it gets a little tricky. JMS still scaring me, dude. The shoulder's an issue. Now he's been rolled up on. I was never a huge fan as everybody else was, to be honest, out of Minnesota. I wasn't as high on him as others were. I'm still a little worried there. I'm just hoping that he can just do what he's supposed to do. If you use that pick on center, give me Creed Humphrey. Give me something like that. I don't want that. I can't get that, but just give me something like that. Okay. I don't know what. Just give me something like that. And then finally, right guard, it's like, is it going to be Van Roten? I think so at this point, right? And I feel pretty good about that, honestly. Don't you feel pretty good about it? It's wild because they just signed him, but I gotta
say this, man. As we go through this, everything you're saying is correct. But I just want to put my head down and just bash my face through a window because we had to make all of these investments. And it should be Josh Azudu and Evan Neal. It should be those two. You spent prime capital on a guard and a tackle. And usually by year 3, those guys are starting on your offensive line. And then the Giants could have allocated all that other money to cornerback or to another defensive lineman or to
Tyrod Taylor, to be quite frank.
Or anything. Not
they wanted. Line. They had as a top 6 guy, Tyrod Taylor, and they didn't have the money to sign him.
Yes. But you made investments that did not work out. So you had to pay for more investments in a specific area of your roster. And that comes at the expense of other areas of your roster. And that's just disappointing.
Perfectly said, though. That's NFL right there. That's roster building. You just broke it down 101. Because of the misses they had, This is something to think about, right? We don't want to give him a full pass. If the O-line gets great this year, I'll be happy, and so will you. Or just let's say average, which is great, is a wild thing to
Seriously.
yeah. Just say average.
Average is great for the Giants, bro.
Average is great for the Giants. It'll be great, but at the same time, like you said, Nick, it'll come at a cost, and there's an opportunity cost to everything, dude. And you broke that down so well. That money that they spent to bring in Van Roten, and to bring in Runyon, it could have been used to fill up all these other needs. But it wasn't, because Neal didn't develop and because Azudu didn't develop, despite them using top 65 picks overall, or whatever Azudu was, 67 on those players. So, and that's when you get to the point of, look, Joe Schoen as a GM, these draft picks have got to start hitting. And look, if Kayvon Thibodeau breaks out this year, I'm going to give him a little bit of a break for missing on those other two and stuff like that.
I agree. Now, this is how you segue, though, Dan.
Okay, what you got?
Because my final bold prediction is the 2024 draft class in year one will perform and quell the heat surrounding Joe Schoen. So I'm talking about Malik Nabers over 1,350 yards, breaking OBJ's record of 1,305, and he will have over 9 touchdowns. Theo Johnson over 500 yards with 3 touchdowns. Tyrone Tracy Jr. over 500 rushing yards with over 350 receiving yards and 5 total touchdowns. Nubin with 6 picks and over 1,000 snaps played on defense, health permitted. Phillips, his temperament in run support will make a difference in nickel packages and sub packages, and will feel encouraged by him heading into year 2. And Muasau, the linebacker, will start games down the stretch in this defense. UDFA, Elijah Chapman will carve out a role as a pass rusher next to Dexter Lawrence in sub packages, and he'll have his moments. And I also think Jake Kubis could end up seeing snaps if something happens to Greg Van Roten or John Runyon Jr. So this draft class it won't completely 180 the narrative around Joe Schoen, but it will certainly quell the storm that is starting to really percolate around the general manager.
I love that. And I think it could go up 165 it, 170 it, honestly. Like, if this draft class hits the way it could potentially hit, I'm sure we've said that about a lot of other draft classes, dude, and that's just the reality of draft in the NFL. Yeah. But if it does, and it still does feel really good, but like, who knows? It changes everything. Like, I think it really does, because you're not expected as a GM to hit every single draft pick in every single draft class. That's just idiotic to expect that. The NFL draft is a complete crapshoot, and we know that. So, like, if you can have one massive hit, like, just look at the NFL as an example of this, Nick. Jerry Reese had one total amazing draft class, and it bought him 7 extra years as a general manager, 9 extra years as a general manager. One great draft class, 07. The rest of them are not that good if you look at them. None were great, for sure. Barely any were even considered good, you probably look at. But that 107 class with Bradshaw, with Boss, with whoever else they got, I can't believe I'm blanking on these names, but it's been a long time.
Jay Alford, baby.
Jay Alford. Like,
Adam Coates, let's go.
But the big picks up top, the corner, Aaron Ross, who was good for time. Like, but mostly those Bradshaw and Boss. Like, it buys you a lot. So, like, if you have one knock it out of the park draft, it will change the narrative fast like this. Because guess what? If they knock it out and what you said comes true, that bold prediction, the Giants are winning 9 games. If everyone you just said performs the way they do, the Giants are winning at least 9 games. That's just the reality of the statement. And you could say, people could be like, are you sure Daniel Jones is still the quarterback? Trust me, Daniel Jones will be fine if the rest of these guys around him are playing that way. I still may not believe in him long-term, to be completely honest with you. And I'm no longer afraid I'm not going to be back down like I did. Like, enough of this stuff with the Jones stuff. Like, you can't tell me how I'm supposed to feel about that as far as will he be a lead or not, and what bar I set for my quarterbacks. And I set a very hard bar. But the Giants could still win games even if their quarterback isn't elite. Like, we've seen teams do this all the time in the NFL, Nick, right? Like, you don't need a quarterback to be elite to win games. Do you need a quarterback to be elite to win Super Bowls consistently? That's a different argument for a different day. And I believe that to consistently compete for Super Bowls over a long period of time, you do need one of those elite quarterbacks. That's my take on it. But look, Jared Goff, who's not an elite quarterback, has got them playing and the Lions at a really elite level. Obviously, that roster is much further along than the Giants. We know that. I'm not comparing the Giants to the Lions roster. Let's take a step back. And Goff has taken his play to the next level. But why, Nick? Because he has the pieces around him. And that's what the Giants are trying to do, put these pieces around Jones.
Exactly. And he has, like, not even just the pieces around him. The system is tailored to Jared
amazing.
Goff.
But we believe we should have a good system here, right?
Yes.
With Dable?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else, or that's your last bold prediction, right? That was 5.
That is my last bold prediction.
All right.
Remember, these are bold predictions. All right. Doesn't necessarily mean Dan and I think
We hope to hit
they're
one
definitely
each.
going to happen. It is fun to do. All right. It is very fun
Yeah,
to do. And
it is.
I had a good time, buddy.
Yep. It's always fun to do bold predictions, and more content coming next week. We wanted to give you something for the weekend, for this long weekend, but we're going to get into some stuff next week. Preview, obviously, coming of the Vikings game, in addition to our record predictions, among other things. So thank you so much for tuning into Big Blue Banter Podcast. I apologize to those of you who came for another rant. It's not happening yet, and it's not going to happen on command. It'll hopefully never happen again. Can you imagine if I don't have to rant again this season, Nick? It's going to be a good year, right?
Are
We're
you
just gonna be happy.
sure?
Yes, it'll be a good year, man. I don't want to have to do that. Like, I don't want to get into it. I don't want to be triggered like that. I just want to be happy about this team. I just want to win, dude. So how long have we been saying the same shit? Things have to change, and hopefully this is the year that they do. And if these bold predictions come true, even 2 of 5, it will be the year for us. So thanks again. I keep forgetting to do this, Nick, but please like our video. Likes have been down on the videos lately. It's no surprise the views are down, the likes are down, the algorithm's not pushing it out. Please hit the like button, subscribe, do all that fun stuff for us. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. It's the last one of summer. I hope you guys will be enjoying it. I know what I'll be doing this weekend. What?
Wrong one.
Oh, Labor Day weekend. Holy crap. Memorial Day weekend is long gone, but Nick, I'm going to be getting out there doing both the things I love now, tennis and golf. So I don't know what you're doing this weekend, but I'm excited for both of those.
Wait, didn't you just beat the crap out of Adam Azer of CBS?
Yes. I didn't want to spend too much time on this, but amazing, crazy day. So for about a month or two, we've been touting on CBS Sports, Fantasy Football Today. I work for CBS Sports full time, a match for charity, right? And this was me versus Adam Azer, the host of the show, in tennis. Adam has been playing 3 to 4 times a week tennis. I didn't play much at all this summer. I picked up a racket basically twice. And that's because, look, I'm golfing. That's the reality situation. So his challenge was, can I beat Dan playing all this time? And he used to play tennis, but he doesn't play much. So we raised a ton of money for charity, over $3,000. We did a live stream that, Nick, this was insane. We got 18,000 people at once viewing this live stream at the peak. 18,000 people for some reason watching us play tennis.
How many of them were rooting for you? How many of them were rooting for Adam?
We did a poll. 58% were rooting for Adam and picked Adam to win. 58% picked me to win. 42% picked Adam to win.
Yeah,
which
I knew you were going to beat him. Like when I heard this was going down, I'm like, Dan's pretty damn good at tennis. Like Adam,
and more athletic than him. Now he's more athletic than I thought he was going to be, but I'm still obviously more athletic than him.
He's a little bit older than we are, right?
Yeah, he's like 38.
Okay, that's not that bad.
37 or 38. But I ended up winning 6-2, 6-0, just dominated him. Sorry, Adam. He was really disappointed. Adam slammed his racket 3 times on the ground.
Did he
cursed loudly,
Dude,
which he never does. He's a family man. So I understand the frustration. But, I'll say this. Tennis is really fun. And I fell in love with golf this summer. And we'll end it on this. People hate this kind of talk, Nick, so we can't talk about our lives.
I don't think they do as much as you say. But go on.
Okay. Maybe I'm just looking at the comments too much. But or the few people in the comments too much. But I'll say this, because I think adding the personality is a good thing. And I know it is.
It's the end of the podcast anyways.
It's the end of the podcast. Skip this if you don't like this. I fell back in love with tennis just playing this. I reminded of just why it's such a fun, good sport. I'm hopefully going to start playing tennis again. So again, I've said this before, but a few of you have reached out and we're going to try to make it work. If you want to play weeknights with me at tennis and you're at least a 3-5 player, hit me up. And even if you're a 3-0, I'll do 3-0. Obviously, if you're a beginner, I'm sorry to say, I don't really want, it's unfortunate how the sport works, but it's not fun for players who are 3-5 or 4 to play with like worse than like a 2-5 or 2-0. It's unfortunate reality of the sport, and you just can't really hit well. But if you're a solid tennis player, let's hit, man. I'm open weeknights during the year, maybe some weekends if I can do it before college football. Let's do it for the Badgers, and Badgers will probably be out of it by like week 6 anyway. So like, hit me up. Let's play some tennis. I want to hit again. I want to play again. I want to get good again. I want to start getting the consistency back in the ground strokes.
I'll go out there with you too. I mean,
yeah, let's get out there.
I don't play tennis, so I'm one of those guys that you're referring to. But I mean, I usually pick up a sport and I can just like.
You are athletic, and you are so weirdly good at golf for how little you've played. Weirdly make contact with a golf for how little you've played. Just shocking. Most people who don't play golf at all can't get the ball in the air. But anyway. That's it for the Big Blue Banter podcast. A little bit of rambling at the end. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.